Hi, everyone. Welcome to the So Tru Network with Dawn Johnson and Powers. I am so glad you're here, and I'm extremely excited to have you here for our In Tru Conversation series. In this space, we sit down with community leaders, educators, and our community voices who are making an extraordinary impact. Together, we'll explore how their journeys connect to the So Tru pillars: community empowerment, women's empowerment, and financial empowerment. These conversations are about truth in action, our overlapping circles with great people and their stories that remind us we are stronger together. As you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of our So True updates. So, in your work, I know you're talking about building community. What do you think our community, because I talked about the parents reaching out into community and finding their resources. What do you feel like the community can do to help with things that you're saying that our Black boys need?
So for me, I think um, this is a kind of a loaded answer
Yeah.
because I feel like I think about I'm only in this is year 10 for me in education, and I hope this comes out the right way. But like there are so many different things that schools can do to better, I believe, position themselves to create that true collaborative relationship between school and community. And then on the other side of it, because I've been in the school system for last 10 years, I know and I see all of the things that schools are trying
Mm-hmm.
that oftentimes Black parents don't show up to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing both sides of the spectrum. I'm like, okay, over here I see that there was this a cool initiative where school may have spent a lot of money, resources, time planning, and then nobody shows up. But then I'm
Mm-hmm.
also seeing that okay, that parent might work 2 3 jobs and can't come to an event right at 5 o'clock.
Right.
I think if any one of us have this like that answer,
Mm-hmm.
then not that it's about money, but we will be multimillionaires because there's this challenge of connecting. Having said that, I do believe that there is a model that, and I want to give like a major, just on camera shout out to, when I was at Old Point, which is here in Rock Hill,
Mm-hmm.
my principal at the time, Bianca Shivers White, we had this idea of we want to get parents to this event, right? But the reality of it is this: parents are working. Parents can't always come back to the school, and oftentimes parents don't necessarily have in their memory the best experience with school in general.
Right.
So we had this idea to go into the community where the actual neighborhood where our kids lived at. Talk to the apartment complex. They let us rent it out. I didn't charge us a thing, and we got a food truck out there. We got board games from Walmart, and got a DJ to come out there. And we held our PTO meeting in the neighborhood, and there was 200 families that showed up.
Wow.
So it can be done, but my struggle is figuring out a way to make a sustainable
Mm-hmm.
system for a sustainable model where it can continue, because you can't always have an event like that, but there are other innovative ideas that can happen.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I haven't figured out a solution yet. It's something I often think about. um and so I know I didn't give you a straight answer in terms of how it can be done, but I think it can. I think it's super important to be done.
And that's part of why I'm even doing this social network is because I want to get these kind of questions out in front of people to start to spark our, because we're very creative people.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about the systems that exist now that are currently being dismantled, it started back during the civil rights era.
Yeah.
When we didn't have full access to, resources. Then
Yeah.
we figured out how to get it to our communities. I mean, the Black Panthers, People focus on the negative aspects of, who they were as an organization and maybe their tactics. But what they actually accomplished was pretty phenomenal. They're the reason we had free and reduced lunch in schools. Yeah. They fed the children in the communities. I read a book recently about the female Black Panther who was being groomed for leadership, Elaine Brown. She actually came to Rock Hill, and Jonathan Nazir Victory Gardens had an event for her, and she's actually the daughter of Emmett Scott. Yeah. Who Emmett Scott Center is named after. And in her book, she tells a story about how a young man, he wasn't going to school, and one of the Black Panthers, was like, you need to be in school. And he talked about he was embarrassed, I guess, to go to school because maybe if his attire or something like that. They made sure he had clothes. Yeah. And then when they tried to figure out what was going on at home, I mean, they were pretty nosy. Yeah. And intrusive, and I don't think that we're not comfortable being that these days. Yeah. So they went to figure out what was going on in the home, and basically his mother was seeing someone who wasn't this child's father, and this person wasn't treating him well. So he didn't want to go home. He avoided being home. So he found out that this man was being abusive to the man and the child. They kicked him out, and then they took her groceries. Wow. Every week to make sure that she didn't feel the need to go back to this man. So before there was a welfare system, there were the Black Panthers. Yeah. So I don't know, in the state of affairs right now, we may have to go back to those systems. Yeah. I think our churches are going to have to re-engage in that way and have organizations that function in that way. Yeah. To really, to your point, address the issues that are occurring in our families and in the families within our community. So so that's part of what this network is about, is coming up with these solutions. Yeah. And I'm actually starting some kind of think tanks where we as a community can stop pointing fingers at organizations, the church, the elected officials, and every time you point a finger, there's another finger pointing back at you. Yeah. You are somebody. Yeah. What can you do to address these issues versus complaining about the people who you don't feel are doing the things? Yeah. Because we got to get back to that. I think about, remember the book you recommended, The Black Titan? Yes. So I think about, what was the guy's name it was about? A.G. Gaskin. A.G. Gaskin. So you think about where we at now. We have so many resources, so many, we have a lot of resources at hand. Yeah. And I think about just the community aspect of how before you introduced the book to me, I never heard of his name, right? Yeah. And I think this is a Black millionaire. Yeah. One of the first. Yeah. And I think about how the civil rights movement that we know, in large part, at least in that community, which was pretty historic. Yeah. Probably could not have happened without him being a part of it, even though he knew that most people would not even know his name. Right. And so I think about the point you made about, pointing fingers and stuff. It's like, I pray that there's a paradigm shift where we come together and say, I don't care if my name is on it. I don't care if Miss Dawn's name is on it. I don't care if my organization gets the credit, but I want to see this is a national pandemic or epidemic, whichever one is correct, where if you look at historically over the past 50 years, our Black boys, I'm sorry to keep going back to it, but our Black boys and our Black kids are struggling. Yes. So regardless of if I get the credit for it, you get the credit for it. If we come together and say we're a village and we're gonna pour our resources into it, we can make change. We can. And so I think there needs to be a paradigm shift about, like A.G. Gaskins is, I don't care if my name's attached to it or not. What can I do to help? Exactly. So we gotta get to that point. Yeah. I think I read that you only need 3% of your community to engage to make change happen. Yeah. So we often complain about, 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. We only need 3%. Yeah. To actually make a difference. And that's a study that was done on change actually happening, because most people don't know where laws came from, how policies got enacted. They don't know the source of those things. So if you look at that movie, The Bankers, where it talks about those men who used a white proxy to help Black people buy homes, and they formulated a bank and used a white person to basically be the face of the bank so that they can circumvent some of the laws and policies that kept them from doing it. Those men ended up going to jail, but the results of the work that they did ended up being the foundation for the affordable housing policies.
Oh wow.
So we got to start to understand the root of the work,
Yeah.
and the sacrifice. And I don't say that we have to give up our lives and be martyrs and go to jail for it, but there are some things that we can do a little bit differently, to your point, if we come together and utilize the talents that we do have and find the overlapping circles. Like, you don't have to do all the things. I would love to see where we get to the point where, we have so many churches. Like for us, we know that our church, for instance, the Greater Work Center, I want to give them a shout out. They have their mission to do X, Y, and Z. So rather than me go to them with another idea, I want to see them do X, Y, and Z really well.
Yeah.
And if there's something else that needs to be done that is not their mission, instead of me kind of feeling the need to like throw another idea on them that kind of, gets their focus off of X, Y, and Z, I'm looking out at the other churches and it's like, oh, y'all are doing that. Okay, so that's where I'm going to
Yeah.
send people for that particular thing.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all are doing that. And I think if we as churches maybe came together to say, what are you good at? What are your people good at? Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to and almost create this network.
Yeah.
Instead of just not talking to each other. Like, I know CT Kirk, since I've been here, when he started out first as a pastor, I remember him going to every church to determine where he would be a pastor. And then he ends up having his own church. But I know he put a lot of work and effort into trying to bring churches together. And it just kind of never seemed to really happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can work on.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, and I think it's gonna make a perfect transition. Um.
This will be the last one.
Okay.
Wrap it up here.
All right. So I'm thinking about the story you told me before, like when we were just sitting here talking.
Yeah.
About like the way that your brain works about like that community aspect of church.
Right.
And then can you share the story about how you ended up meeting, who was it,
Reverend Fox.
Reverend Fox?
Yes. So we were a part of a church, and I'm so not used to into church labels and all the titles and stuff that they and denominations. But I found out after the fact that the church that we were a part of in New York was a Pentecostal church. I mean, they have like a lot of strict rules about what you wear and wear makeup and women wearing pants and all the things. But anyhow, I knew none of that. I just know that as a child, from the time that I can remember, I love going to church. Like every Sunday to me is when all of our family came together after everybody was working, and I felt like we just had a party for God. And so my sisters were singing on the choir, my mother sang on the choir, was a deaconess, my dad was a deacon. My sisters were all there in the choir, and me and my cousins, we all of the same age, sat on the front pew with no guidance, but our parents looking at us, giving us the eye if we was fidgeting too much, right? And the old lady in the back, you hear the peppermint paper, she handing you the peppermint or giving you a piece of gum. Like that's the kind
That
of
was
church.
my mama.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the kind of church that good old church that we remember. And I was gonna say Southern church, but this was in New York. So I had fun, and then afterwards, all the family gathered at my house, and my mother would cook food, and everybody would eat. Like Sunday was the best day of the week. So there was a situation where our family was a big family in the church, and there was another big family. Our families, you know, my sister married the guy in that family, and there was a issue between them that then kind of caused us to leave the church. So with that, the kids, my cousins and I, and there were five of us, ages 4 up to 13, when our family left the church and our parents were still trying to figure out what church they were going to go to, we were like, well, we still want to go to church. We want to have a party. So while they figured it out, being in New York, it was great because there were churches everywhere that we could walk to. So we would get up and put on our clothes, and our parents would be like, where you going? We're like, going down the street to the church. And they'd be like, okay. So we would go to different churches every Sunday and ask, can we sing for you? And they would, look, it's a little strange, but they're like, sure, these kids in the neighborhood want to sing for us. And we would go and sing our little song and sit down and listen to the sermon and go home. So we went to multiple churches, multiple Sundays until we hit this one church. It was called Greater Faith. And it was Reverend Fox was the pastor. And he said, can y'all stay after church? So he got our names, our parents' names, and their telephone numbers. And he called them and said, um, can your kids stay here? And we will, nurture them, and we would go to Sunday school and all the things. And then our parents started coming. And so I just remembered. So then, when fast forward, when I graduated from college, and at 22, the pastor of the church where I say accepted Christ, Lord and Savior for myself, where I understood what it meant versus your parents telling you what to do, um, was with Reverend Gary Williams at First Baptist Church of Mandarin in Jacksonville, Florida, which is now Hopewell. But he, after working with the youth, he asked me if I would be the president of the youth ministry, and I'm like, I'm still a youth myself. So I, accepted it because I loved the kids, and I tell that story about the family member um, that made me want to be involved with youth because I felt like we needed to interject in their lives a little bit earlier so that they don't have to go through the path of ending up in jail to figure out life. So become the president, and we're putting on a program for the youth. And I have always seen myself as introvert, behind the scenes person, never ever gonna stand on anyone's stage. Don't want to talk in front of people. I'm totally behind the scenes. So, but the pastor was like, I need you to at least introduce the kids. And I'm like, no, they could just go and, start the program. He's like, well, you got to introduce yourself as the president of the youth ministry and tell the congregation what the kids are about to do.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So I wrote out, all the things that I needed to say. And I was like, I'm going to read these things and sit down. But then I heard the Holy Spirit saying, I need you to give your testimony. And the testimony was that story about, hopping from church to church and how basically we as kids, got our families, our adults and our families reintroduced to church. And so the first sermon, I read the thing, it was at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then the second service, which is 11, the words were just scrambled. Like I couldn't even read. And the pastor's like, okay, she did this perfectly at 7 a.m. So let her gather her thoughts. And then I was just like, okay, Lord. And then I gave that testimony to help them understand why being a youth ministry leader was important to me. And it was the story, of that family member. And it was the story of us as children and this pastor saying, because I thought about, we were hopping from church to church to church. What made him say, I want you to be a part of our church, and we're going to nurture you, and we're going to love on you, and as a result, bring our family, our adults and our family back to church. Thank you so much for joining us for In Tru Conversations. Every story shared is another piece of our collective truth that we're presenting to our community to build together. I invite you to stay connected with the So Tru Network by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and please share this episode with someone who you think may need it. Remember, your truth matters, and when your truth and my truth intersect, we will find liberty. So I'll see you in the next conversation.